In the previous video, I showed you how to edit raw images in Photoshop, and it was very similar to how you edit in Lightroom in terms of the options you have for editing. With a JPEG image, you don't have as many options. And in Lightroom, you can actually bring in JPEG images and do all of the same types of editing that you do with a raw image. You just don't have the range and the depth and the information within that photo file to really play with the exposure or the saturation or different things like that. So with Photoshop, if I go ahead and open up this image, which is just a test image, I exported the JPEG by itself from Lightroom, so I have this image as a JPEG, or this could be straight from the camera if I was shooting JPEG plus RAW. And what options do I have? There's different ways to get to them, but either from this bottom you can add adjustments to this layer, such as brightness, contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation. So it's a lot of the same things that you saw in the other menu, it's just a little bit more difficult to get to them. The next option is to go up to Image, Adjustments, and you have the same basic options. So let me just go through a couple of them to show you how it works. It's pretty self-explanatory once you are kind of clicking around, and since hopefully you've watched the Lightroom lessons, you know what each of these do. It's just figuring out, clicking it and finding out how to use it. So for example, let's do curves. So this is going to open up a tone curve, and you have the option to just drag and create an S curve. So again, maybe not something so crazy, but something like that for this image where I wanted a lot of contrast. And under here you can actually even customize it, go into your reds and blues and greens. So say you want to add blue and red, but take out, or red and green and but take out blue, make a really yellow image, whatever. So then you can go up to Images, Adjust, and there's some different filters in Photoshop called the photo filter. So this is an easy way to basically warm or cool or add different tints to your image. So say I want this warming filter. You can increase the density to make it more warm or less warm. I'm just gonna hop over to like one of these cool ones, and so this can actually help you adjust the white balance by eyeballing it. Another thing that you can do, actually I'll go down here just to show you that it's similar. You can do hue saturation. So saturation again will boost the colors for all the colors in your image, and here you can also do things like changing the hue or the lightness. So this is bright, making it brighter or darker. One more thing, let's just go through, well, black and white, that'll just make it a black and white image in one click. Brightness and contrast, so this is a little bit different, but you have a contrast slider which is similar, and then you also have a brightness. So this is sort of your exposure, so this will increase or decrease the exposure. So that's one thing. And then lastly, to kind of come full circle and show you what you can do in Photoshop, similar to how we did it in Lightroom, there is a crop. Now there's all sorts of different tools over here which you can learn about in another Photoshop course of mine called Photoshop Tools, but this crop one is the one we'll talk about. Basically you hit crop, same thing happens as in Lightroom. You have this edge pop up and you can click and drag this edge around, and by holding shift and doing it, you lock it to the aspect ratio that you originally have. So say I want something like this, and I can move my image, and once you're done you just hit enter on your keyboard or return. There you have it. Click this mouse tool up here, the move tool, and you get back to just your standard mouse pointer. And so then if we want to go add this black and white, and then maybe add the curves, so boost this S curve, we have a pretty similar photo to the one that I edited in Lightroom. So here is the one I edited in Lightroom, so it's actually a lot brighter. So another thing we can do is levels. So this is another way to increase or decrease the brightness of the different ranges. So you have your darks, your mids, and your highlights over here. So by boosting the highlights, boosting the mids, and decreasing the darks, you get this very contrasty look. So those are all ways to make adjustments. When you're actually making these adjustment layers down here, it creates a new layer that's actually adjusting your image. So like this. If you have your layer selected and you go up to image adjustments here, it actually doesn't add a new layer. It's actually editing the image itself. So sometimes it's easier and better to actually add an adjustment layer in case you want to get rid of it later on, because otherwise with Photoshop you can't undo all of the things that you've ever done, and you can't just go quickly back and undo a brightness and contrast adjustment that you do up here. But by adding an adjustment layer down here, you can turn it on and off. Okay, so I know this is a lot of stuff. I was kind of all over the place in this lesson, but if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll go over other things that you can do in Photoshop in future lessons. Have a great day.